a veteran animator of Disney Studios, who the first day of festival delighted us with a wonderful masterclass. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so analyzing projects such as Bizarro Classic, Superman Classic, and the new Carmen, we can easily notice that all these works have been created starting from a classical hand-drawn animation to be lately digitalized and turned into 2D animation. Moreover, your YouTube channel had this unique and a bit ironic name where 2D animation is not dead. So starting from this, what do you think is the main role of your animation in 2018, and what is your approach to 3D animation?
Right, so I'm a fan of 3D animation. My favorite animated film is probably The Incredibles, and right now I'm directing Elena Babalor, which is a 3D animation. So I do love that art form. I do miss hand-drawn animation. That's why I grew up watching Bugs Bunny and Fleischer Popeye, and so there's a certain charm that I will always be attached to. And it's kind of nice in this climate. For me, that's a way to distinguish my work from maybe other work that's out there, because 2D's, at least in America, 2D is becoming a little more and more unique. And so it's good to have the day job and do what I do for a living, and then come home and kind of still be able to keep that traditional animation alive. And even when it comes down to rendering the artwork, I don't want to make the 2D too clean, because CGI is so clean and glossy and perfect. I kind of like that it's just moving drawings, and you can still see, scratchy lines or even construction lines in the character, to help, again, distinguish it from the CG and make it unique in of itself.
Okay. Thank you. And second, is there any advice you would like to give to the new generation of animators? Do you think it's good to use social networks to join the bigger animation studios, or it is better to use the web as a way to begin one's own independent career? In a virtual world where drawings and videos are judged in a few seconds, what advice would you give to young animators to improve and stand out with their own works?
Yeah, the social media, I'm trying to figure it out myself too, and how to, luckily there's no more challenge of getting your work seen. It can be seen now. From my own experience, the advice I would give is to have a thick skin, because when you're putting yourself out for scrutiny, it feels really good to hear praise, but you will hear criticism, of course. And I always try to maintain being constructive with that criticism. Not so much on social media, but I had shown Flash Gordon to a personal friend. And I knew I was kind of towing the line between making Flash Gordon very confident, but I didn't want him to come across as arrogant. And I gave him a line where he said, "Nobody's better in the pocket than Flash Gordon." And I showed it to a friend, and he was very negative, even though he's a friend of mine. Very negative reaction. His eyes were batted, and "I don't like this guy, he's arrogant, he's no good." And I was a little bit hurt at first, but then you try to take it in, and how do you make it better from that? How do you turn that negative into a positive? And so I was getting a lot of good reactions from the Dale Arden character, because it was fun. It was a girl in a bikini. So I'm like, well, it would give another chance to see the girl in the bikini again, and then I could give the line to her, and then that way he's not complimenting himself, it's somebody else complimenting him. And it made the short better. It added a new shot of that girl, which is really popular, and it made the character not so arrogant. So even though it hurt to hear that criticism, I used it in a constructive way, and that would be my greatest advice to people. And don't be afraid to put your work out there, because we're always looking at artists. It's really hard to put stuff out. It's hard to take criticism, and I would not want anyone to use that as an excuse to not do it, because they get too precious with it. I put it out, and you'll learn. In one way or another, it'll be really positive, or you'll take a hit, but you'll learn from it. And so all of these things, being able to put it out there, being able to take immediate criticisms to make your art better, I think it's a really exciting time. And I hope everybody embraces it. I think they should. Don't let anything hold them back.
So they just have to accept their own way to express art.
Yeah.
Okay. The project Carmen also relates to your audience on the internet. First of all, through the Facebook page that you created, you think it's possible that your followers may in the future influence the story or the choices of the main protagonist? What is the relationship you have with your viewers, and were you ever inspired by your followers by their posts? If yes, can you give us an example?
Okay, yeah, I definitely want it to be interactive, because that's the new world, is you can interact right with the creator of the show. And it is a love letter to all the other artists out there to do their own thing. So with the Facebook page, I decided to, as an animator, it takes forever to do artwork. How often can I post? But if I turn it into a bigger thing, it's more like a road rage community. Then I can if I see somebody parked in a way I don't like, I can take my phone out and I can take a picture, and then I can post and say, look at this jerk, how he parks. Everybody else, if you find somebody, bust them and put it on the site. Yeah. And then if I have a story about a policeman that was following me and how I avoided getting a ticket, I want to share it and have other people share their experiences. And these can fill all the gaps in between when I can put an animation up there. And if people did I haven't done it yet, but if somebody put a really funny story or anecdote that I wanted to animate, I definitely want to use it, and I would contact the person to make sure it's okay with them too. But that would be a goal, that it's a whole global effort to make this character fun for everybody. And I hope that it's already a character that globally people would relate to. It doesn't matter what country you come from. I picked Los Angeles because that's personal to me, and that's where it came from, and there's road rage. But I've seen your streets in Rome. I mean, they're pretty crazy too. And I think it's everywhere, so I hope everyone can relate to them.
Yeah, everyone. So it can become kind of a national and big fan service.
Yeah, yeah. And Carman can go on road trips. I just posted a picture of Carman in a little Fiat, going to Italy. So it's like Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny can just pop up in Spain where there's a bullfight.
Okay.
I hope Carman can just show up and it's in Italy or Germany or the Autobahn or wherever.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Really. Okay. You have worked both for Disney and Nickelodeon. Can you tell us what are the main differences between these animation studios and how you find yourself working in these places? Furthermore, with the beginning of the CGI animation and the birth of a new generation of young animators, did you feel a strong competition between the old school and youngsters?
Yeah. So when I had to go to Nickelodeon, it was because I had to kind of reinvent myself to a certain degree. Traditional animation was kind of being abandoned at Disney. So I had to make a decision, do I go into CG animation, which the studio was very supportive, they did the right thing and they were training us all. But manipulating the character, I got a little pleasure out of it, but it wasn't the same kind of magic that seeing a moving drawing gives me. And I thought, I don't want to throw away 15 years of drawing and just abandon that, and I can't market myself with that anymore. So I chose to get into story, and at Disney, they kind of, at first didn't see me as a story guy, so they didn't give me the opportunity. So I went to Nickelodeon, and I did embrace it as, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I got to see how they do it at Nickelodeon. But it was also while I was transitioning myself, so I was learning so much. And all these, I thought, I know how to draw, and I know how to read a script, so that means I know how to storyboard. And I quickly learned that, no, there's a whole cinematic language to learn about what kind of shot do you cut from to what kind of shot do you cut to? Why do you move the camera? Is it following something, or why is the camera still? I had to learn all this cinematic language while I was at Nickelodeon. And for a while I didn't know, is this universal or is this just the Nickelodeon way? And now that I've done it for a few years, I see there is a universal language. So the philosophies are very similar. There's not a whole lot of difference between what each studio is doing. They're trying to entertain big audiences in the same manner. But yeah, speaking about the switch from traditional animation to CG, that was a very, very painful experience for a lot of artists to go through. Especially something where all of us, that we wanted to do this since we were little kids. We watched Disney cartoons as a kid. It was always a dream to be able to draw for the Disney studios. And when you finally get in, you feel like you're standing in the golden light. It was just beautiful, and you're so happy. And the thought of it ever ending was just terrifying. And when it kind of all went away for everybody, it was really hard. And some people could transition and some people couldn't. Now I feel very fortunate that I was at an age where I was like, if I was 10 years older, it might have been a little bit harder to learn the new ways. If I was 10 years younger, I would have never experienced it drawing on paper. I was just right at the perfect age where I could draw on paper. I'll always be able to tell when I'm a grandfather. I can tell people that I did it the old way. And then I was still young enough to be able to adapt. So, and then with that, I saw that there would be a little bit of rivalry because, well, the old school animators at Disney, it's a very time-honored tradition, very American tradition, and when you learned this art form, it was very personal. You learned it from an apprentice. You had a master, and it was very one-on-one, and it felt very organic and great. And that knowledge that was handed off from generation to generation, we really valued, and it was special because you couldn't get it anywhere else. So I think when the older animators were making way for these new crop of new animators that grew up on the computer, maybe they felt a little hurt that their experience wasn't as valued as it used to be, and that these new animators had new heroes that they looked towards. And you know, and the respect was there for sure, but I don't know if it was at the same degree that they were used to when they were a master and apprentice. So there was a little bit of that, and then, you know, when you start doing work and you're reliable, a company doesn't want to move you around because they're like, that's what you do and you're good at it, and we know we can count on you. So when that happens, oh, now you want to do story? Oh, I don't know if you can do that. We like what you're doing. So same thing when a traditional animator is like, oh, I want to do CG. Oh, I don't know, we like what you did just that way. So it became very difficult for people that even wanted to make the transition to do it. And as time has gone by, it's kind of sorted itself out, but it was really painful for about 10 years, and because it wasn't really just a light switch that was changed one day. The biggest thing was Toy Story came out, and then everybody was like, wow, there's a new art form. And I myself, I thought, well, they'll probably just coexist. And then you just saw, like, with each movie, like the Pixar movies got bigger and each traditional animation was getting smaller. And then the really big indicator was, you know, for decades, the only studio that could do feature films was Disney. Any other competitor, like Don Bluth, maybe had 3 hits, but other than that, a studio couldn't crank out hit after hit after hit. Only Disney could do that. But now in the CG world, we saw, wow, DreamWorks had a few big hits. Then Ice Age with Fox had a few big hits, and the whole playing field was different. Like, wow, with CG, studios can have multiple hits. It's going to be it's kind of an easier investment for companies to take, where traditional animation was always a little bit risky. So that took about 10 years to really understand, and hoping that 2D would come back. And I still hope maybe it will. I remember music in the 80s got very electronic. They got the Simmons drums, electric drums, they got keyboards, and it got very synthesized. And then I think when it reached that high, like it got to a peak where it couldn't get any more polished, then this whole wave of like unplugged got popular, where, oh, we want to hear these songs now, but only with acoustic guitars. So I hope with that, the way things kind of ebb and flow, that maybe 2D will have a chance, but it'll probably be for the next generation, because the last generation, they're getting older and they're retiring now.
Right now, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's still changing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The last question. Besides Flash Gordon and Superman, in the future, will you pay homage to other superheroes of classic comics too? Or will you create a new original story with a new character like Carmen?
Yeah, so it'll be a mix, because I am realizing it's so hard to get an original idea out there. Nobody's doing a word search for Carman like they are for Superman or Flash Gordon. So the challenge of getting a new thing out there will be present all the time. And I look at other successful people, like, well, I look at the Beatles, where an early Beatles album, half the songs would be cover songs, and that would get you to buy the record so you could hear the original Beatles songs on the other half. So I'm going to probably have to mix in like a cover song here and there just to get people to look at Carman. Immediately comes to mind, like Indiana Jones seems like perfect, because it's that 30s kind of pulp feel. So I could maybe do an Indiana Jones. I'd be excited to do something maybe with the Phantom, which is another property of King Features that goes along with Flash Gordon. So maybe like that. I'm always thinking of ideas. I have a ton of them, like kind of half written on my computer. I have little folders that already say Indiana Jones Classic, Phantom Classic with ideas in there. My Superman folder still has a bunch of them in there. And then I still want to do Carman. And then I am teaming up with Des Taylor, who is a pop artist in London. And he kind of drew some characters for me, and he kind of admitted, Rob, I know nothing about story, but I know imagery. And he drew these really beautiful characters, like a female and a man, and they're World War II era. So I figured, and he named them, they're going to be Eva Strongbird and the Marine. And so I kind of fashioned a story about why would these characters come together, what lesson would one learn, who teaches the lesson. Maybe one of the characters is American like me, the other character could be British like Daz. So we're going to try to do a graphic novel with that, and then because I can animate, if the graphic novel takes off, we'll try to animate those characters as well. But it's just animation takes so long to do. The heart is there, the body wants to do it, it's just finding the time and doing my professional job at Disney, which is already very demanding. But it's good to always have stuff to look forward to. Yeah, plenty. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm very honored.